Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with UofM Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. I'm your host, Am Nemu, and my lovely two guests today are Adrianna Kallabat and Kayla Kamposh. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Adrianna is a junior at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. She is on the pre-medical track studying neuroscience with a minor in education for empowerment. As co-president of CASA, she is very excited to create events for the Chaldean community on campus and connect with a greater community. Kayla is a senior at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and she's set to graduate in April with a Bachelor of Science in Architecture. As a co-president of CASA, she is dedicated to crafting events for the Chaldean community on campus, aiming to foster a sense of belonging and a second home for students in Ann Arbor. So I have heard so much about CASA, by the way. Over the years, I keep hearing about you guys and the wonderful things that you've done. And I believe that when I was in college, I don't think it was available. So most of what I've learned is just over the years, whether I covered a story about you or now having the honor to interview you and learning more. But before we delve into CASA and what it is and what it stands for, I'd like to learn a little bit about your childhood growing up. You know, where were you born and what was it like growing up as a Chaldean? So we'll start with you, Adrianna.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us. We're super excited. I guess I'll start from I grew up in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, kind of like since I was born. I didn't grow up with a lot of Chaldeans in school. So I went to schools where there weren't many Chaldeans in my grade, but the ones that were there, the ones that I like kind of clung on to, and we became really good friends. We had a lot of like fun growing up together, and I felt like they were people I could relate to, not only with like food and our culture, but just like family values and like really deep rooted love within our community. And so growing up, those are the people that I really like grew up with in school, even though there weren't many of us. I grew up with a very supportive family. I have two siblings, one younger sister and one younger brother. And my parents have always been like very supportive, encouraging of everything I do, as well as like our whole community around us. And so growing up, I feel like I would describe my childhood as like a big community that was always supporting me. I have a lot of cousins. So really having like that backing and being able to grow up with people who are fun and like very vibrant is like, I think a great representation of our community and continues to be here at U of M now as we grow older.
So Adriana, maybe because you were born here and you're obviously, you're a younger generation. So there wasn't this sense of not belonging probably in the school in that case. You didn't have those kind of feelings so growing up Chaldean in Michigan with such a large population, it just felt very just natural, just maybe how when I came from Iraq, so when I was in the school, it did feel different. But then the other communities, like the Italians, other ethnicities, I did sense that they felt more at home, and that sounds like what you experienced, and that's wonderful. And what about you, Kayla? What was your experience like?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in West Bloomfield, Michigan, and I have one older sister and a younger brother, so I'm in the middle. And same thing as Adriana, like my parents have always been very supportive of everything that we want to do and very encouraging. And I'm so blessed to have them. They're amazing parents. And I went to West Bloomfield High School, so there also wasn't a huge Chaldean community there. So I kind of got my sense of community from St. Thomas Church. That's where I grew up. And I would go to like catechism and the youth groups and everything like that. So that's really where like my love for our community came from, was from church. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your career paths because obviously there's a CASA at the University of Michigan, but when you chose your career path, first of all, why did you choose the field that you're in, and why UofM in particular? Adriana?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess starting out with career path, since I was young, I really always was interested in medicine, but that didn't like stop me from exploring other fields. I definitely wanted to see like, was medicine the right place for me? So I would always like go into the hospital. I would try and volunteer as much as I can, and really having those patient interactions and like seeing the physicians taking care of patients was something that really stuck with me. And there's like conversations I remember with patients that I still remember. And like, even when the curriculum gets hard for being a pre-med student and things get challenging, those are the things that kind of stick with me and push me to keep going. And so I'm really excited. And then why U of M? I never really planned on going to U of M. My parents had always like wanted me to stay home, and it's great, like being home with your family. And that's something that I miss, definitely being here, like having that like family support with you every day. But U of M, I've had like such great research opportunities. There's a really large Chaldean population on campus that we didn't really expect when I first came here. We had our like first mass meeting for CASA yesterday, and we had about 80 students come. So it's a really large population that does make it feel like home. So there's that balance of like the great opportunities and a great curriculum for like a pre-med student, but also like still having that sense of belonging on campus that I was worried about initially, but definitely taken care of on that end.
Well, thank you for that. And, all I was thinking when you were describing this is my mom, God rest her soul, but when she was alive, she loved doctors. She loved, she thought the world. I think most people back home really honor this career understanding, and having taken care of her for a long time. I know when I took her, whether it was the nurses, the doctors, I mean, really, it's just, a very healing work, obviously, but yeah, all I could think is of her, and it's a lot of hard work as well. I think that being surrounded with this familiar community just gives you, so you're not really isolating. The nice thing is like you're not really isolating by the fact that you're going there and you're on campus, but yet you have this community, and you can have such a balance between that.
Definitely.
Yeah. What about you, Kayla? Did you choose your career?
Yeah, so I'm majoring in architecture, and my plan is to get my license in architecture in a few years after doing a master's program and taking the state exams and things like that. And it was honestly really tough to like land on this because I feel like the typical thing is like pre-med or pre-law within our community. So, but when I was young, I love like painting and drawing and taking photos and stuff. And in high school, I would take a lot of art classes. And so I knew when I went to college that I wanted to do something creative, and architecture kind of just fell in my lap. I don't know. I think one day my dad was just like, my dad's an electrician, so he works with a lot of architects. He reads blueprints and things like that. And I would just watch him, and he was like, "Why don't you do this?" And I was like, maybe I should. And so I looked more into it, and I think it's the right career path for me. And then for why I chose U of M, there's only 3 architecture schools in Michigan: U of M, Lawrence Tech, and Detroit Mercy. And so my sister and a few of my cousins had went to U of M, and I initially didn't really want to go at first. I kind of wanted to stay home. But when I looked more into it and went on tours of the schools, it just felt right to me to go to U of M. And they have such amazing opportunities and connections with a whole bunch of people in the architecture field. So it just worked out that way.
Well, I don't know if you know Victor Siroki.
Yes.
He's one of our founders. We just recently
Oh,
interviewed him, and when we went to his office, so you gain so much appreciation when you meet people and see their work. And just his office alone, you could see that he's an architecture because just the way he has everything designed and set up, and he had a big role and designing our museum as well.
oh wow.
So yeah. So, and the fact that I know what it is like in this community when you are stepping outside of the normal career paths, such as like lawyer and doctor, because I myself as a writer and filmmaker, it was like, this is not, it wasn't as encouraged, it's always like
Yeah.
kind of do it on the side type of thing. But then when you kind of combine your creativity or what you're good at with there are jobs available for what people do. And I think that's wonderful that you have found something that you can combine your creativity with and make a living at the same time, right? Because
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah.
So now we are going to get to CASA. So tell us about a little bit about the history of CASA, and then why you two joined. Because you're different years, right? Did you, by the way, did you guys meet on campus or did you know each other beforehand?
We actually met each other through a summer camp at Mother of God that we both volunteered for. So that's where we became friends, and then we both just ended up at U of M and at CASA.
Okay, and so yeah, so please tell me, however you guys want to share this information about the history of CASA and your decision to join.
I can go ahead. So the history of CASA, I guess, I don't know exactly what year it had started, but I think it was started maybe like 15, 20 years ago. Like it's been around for quite some time, but I think there was a Chaldean population on campus, and there was definitely the need to like bring people together. And it's hard and challenging to like start something new like that and like somehow access all the Chaldeans on campus. So they did a great job of like kind of bringing together the community in like a really special way. I think there were other CASAs at other universities like Wayne State, and then bringing it to U of M, it's like skyrocketed since. And I remember like the reason I really joined CASA, I feel like I would have joined like finding out about it on campus, but growing up, my mom had always told my mom went to Wayne State and so did my dad, and they had always told me about how they like made their best friends through CASA at Wayne State, and so they would go and volunteer together. They would have the best time, and I remember like half of the stories they would tell me about college were directly from CASA, and so they're like, as soon as you get on campus, like make sure you go and like find where CASA is. And so that really like growing up and hearing those stories made me just so excited to become involved. And I knew it was something that I was like very excited about. And so I feel like that's what like really pushed me to like want to join right from the beginning. And I'm so happy that we keep growing as a group. This year we have so many new freshmen and their energy is amazing. And I feel like it's going to bring so much to this group, and it's definitely very exciting. So we can't wait.
Yeah. I joined CASA. My high school had a CASA, but there wasn't that many of us. There was probably like 20 of us in the group. But I always looked forward to it. We had like weekly meetings, I'm pretty sure. And I always looked forward to going and just like hanging out with our community because it's such like a nice bond when you know somebody shares the same values and culture as you. And so when my sister, who's older than me, went to U of M before me, and she was a part of CASA. And so I was like, this is great, like that I can join this group now too, that I'm at U of M, and just like join all the other Chaldean people and have that connection with them.
So I think, Adrianna, you mentioned that there was a meeting you had yesterday. It was your first meeting, and you guys had 80 people show up. Where do you have, yeah, where do you have these meetings? It can't be in your dorm.
That's a great question. I think it was around 80. It might have been more, honestly. It was it was probably one of our biggest turnouts. But these meetings, we have them in like, we reserve rooms in like some of the buildings. And so they have super large capacities, and like we were over capacity for sure. There were like people on the floor, people like overflowing out the hall, but it was very fun. We went and like did an ice cream social after, but everyone was just like very excited about CASA, which made us like even more excited. So we're just very happy.
So give us like an idea of, so like at yesterday's meeting, what do you do? Do you first, introduce yourselves and then introduce CASA, but then do people have the chance to interact? Do you take suggestions? How does it just, if somebody wants to get involved now, they're just like hearing about this, and it could be maybe even for a different university. Just what's the setup, and how does the person feel? How do the person gets involved? Are they just showing up and then you guys have everything already planned? Do they become part of the planning process? I just kind of would like to have a little bit of an idea about it.
I like that question. I can touch on some of our events, and then Kayla, I can give it to you for like the masses and stuff, which is like another cool thing we do. But in regards to like yesterday's structure, that was like our initial meeting is like pretty formal, like compared to our other ones. Like we'll go through like who our board is, introduce ourselves, go through like a timeline of some of our events, and then the best part really is, like you said, like we have some interaction component. So we get through our slides in around like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I would say, and then dedicate the rest to like small group activities. So we'll number people off, make sure like they're kind of scrambled so people can meet each other. And like they kind of just go off on their own. We have some like prompts, but really everyone just kind of talks about their own thing, getting to know other people. But yeah, usually our first meeting is a lot of like new joiners because they want to get to know like what we do. Um, but aside from that, like our next event, for example, is our annual barbecue. So we'll pick a location on campus. Anyone can show up if they follow like our Instagram, whatever it is. We send out emails. So if they reach out to like our Instagram, we'll add them to our email list. But we'll have like a CASA barbecue every year. We also do this year, we're adding on like, we're making CASA sports teams where like people will get into like, whether it's like flag football, volleyball, whatever it is, and like compete against other teams at the university very like recreationally. And so that's been a big hit from what we've been seeing. People are very interested in like becoming part of one of these teams, meeting new people, especially for people out of state. I feel like we've heard a lot of feedback about how they're really excited about like joining a team and becoming part of the community that way. But I'll hand it to you, Kayla. Those are some of our events for September. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then some of our other events that we do, mostly what we do is like social events just so that we can all like kind of hang out. But we also do fundraising events. But one thing that we started doing last year is that we've been doing like monthly masses, or we've been trying to have it monthly, where we'll contact a Chaldean priest from our community. And there's a Catholic church up there in Ann Arbor. So we'll have them come and celebrate like a weekday mass. And then afterwards, we do a fellowship with like food, and we just like hang out with the priests. And last year, one of our priests came and like blessed a few apartments. So it was really nice. And then our biggest event that we have is in March. It's called Live from Babylon. And that's just a big fundraising event. We'll collaborate with a nonprofit organization. Like I think 2 years ago, we did the Shlama Foundation. Last year, we did Nineveh Rising, which is an amazing nonprofit. And they all the money goes to them, and they like help our brothers and sisters in the homeland. And so that's our really big fundraising event. But yeah, it's just mostly like social events and fundraising and things like that.
I like this. This is very interesting. I'm learning so much. Honestly, like your name is out there a lot, but I didn't know the details and how you do this. And so are the events, I know, Adriana, you mentioned that the barbecue is open, is like anybody can show up to it. Is that the same for the other events, or are you guys more there? The events are mostly for the CASA members. And do you collaborate with other CASA at different universities when you do these events, or everybody has their own thing?
Yeah, so most of our events, we say it on the Instagram or on the emails whenever we post it. But pretty much any college student is welcome if they're a part of our CASA or a different CASA, or even if it's like a friend or a brother or sister. We kind of just let everybody come. Whoever wants to come can just join us at any time.
Nice. And I like the mass idea and having the priests come in. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's been such a great turnout with those. So we're really happy about that.
Well, one of the things I'm wondering that this might also, if it gives this opportunity, I know, there's a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions about every single group that's out there. And so, including, about the Chaldeans, and you being in these universities, actually just being yourselves as Chaldean Americans, you're representing the community, and also there's a chance for people to get to know who Chaldeans are through you. But having a group such as CASA, that's of course on a much bigger scale. And so what are some of the stereotypes and misconceptions that you have witnessed about Chaldeans, and how do you, whether individually or as CASA members, combat that?
I remember last year, well, one of the misconceptions is kind of that we're like we like to stay like within our community and that we like may not be welcoming to other people. But I remember last year, like one of our most active members wasn't even Chaldean, like, and he would come to all the events and he'd come hang out with us and he'd come to the masses. And the same thing happened yesterday. There were a few people who came who weren't Chaldean, but were always welcoming towards everybody and anybody can join at any time. And so we just like seeing people who aren't like specifically like Chaldean, but they like come to all of our events and they're active members in our club. So
And Adriana, have you noticed anything different or mostly what Kayla's sharing?
I definitely agree with what Kayla is saying. I feel like that's something that I've like heard and like seen people say as well. But I feel like with like CASAs at not only U of M but the other CASAs, that's definitely like not like something we encourage. And like I feel like it's been a lot of people feel so welcome to join. And it's like it's very exciting even for us because we get to learn about like their culture, whatever it may be. But I adding on to that, a lot of the students at U of M sometimes like don't even hear about what Chaldeans are because they might be like from a different state or they're just
Mhm.
not familiar with our culture. And so I like think it's super exciting when somebody will be like what ethnicity are you? Like you kind of like they don't know. Like they'll be like, you kind of look Italian, like I don't know. So I'll tell them like Chaldean and then we'll kind of it'll spark a whole conversation about like what is that? And they'll be so interested because it's something that they've never heard of, but like they start like becoming very interested and excited about like the community and like we describe it as like vibrant, like exciting and like what we all like get excited about when we talk about Chaldeans. So I think it's really it's interesting like to think that there's so many people from just out of state that like really like how would they know what Chaldeans are because we're localized to so few areas within the United States and like kind of in like clusters where maybe a lot of people in Michigan know what Chaldeans who we are, but in like a different state that's very different. So that's
Yeah,
just something I've seen on campus.
that's true. Having that opportunity when you share your stories and when you tell people, one of the things that I love when I give tours of the museum is this is an opportunity to share so many stories that people, if they had certain conceptions about Chaldeans, they end up learning some of our traits or some of our habits or lifestyles are from like thousands of years ago. It's just something that it's just like anybody who, when you know your roots and then you see that, oh, historically we did some things that we still tell today, even being known for being so faith-based. So the we have all our statues. If you notice the statues in Mesopotamia, they're all standing with their hands like this, clasped like this. That's all like the kings and the queens and the women, children. This is how they pose for their statues with their hands clasped. But from that long ago, from thousands of years ago, they would give gratitude and they would give credit for their gods for any kind of work that they did from that long ago. So this gesture in itself, and so being faith-based is just also, some of the strong points that we have today, and our work ethics also really just even comes also from thousands of years ago. And I think that when we share our stories, when people come and see and they realize that it's embedded, some of them is embedded in us. And then of course, like now, as you guys are proof of that, coming here, you're acclimating and assimilating. We've evolved and changed, and of course we embrace our other cultures as well, and you guys are really testaments to that. So regarding advice, so we have, including like my daughter is going to be starting college soon and she's very excited, and I think she probably would be more influenced by women such as yourself than what I have to say, it seems like, and others in our community that she's influenced. So what would you tell our youth who are looking with excitement towards their future, and who do have sometimes this love for their community and their family, and the decisions. I feel some of the things, a lot of the things that you guys touched upon, I can just like, I see my daughter in it as she's getting closer to that age. What advice would you give our youth who are trying to make a decision about what college, and even trying to see how close and why they should stay connected or try to stay connected to communities, including like through CASA or maybe in other ways?
I can start. A lot of like the lessons that like come to mind immediately are from my dad. Those are the things that like kind of like come right to my brain. But I feel like the biggest thing that I always think of in regards to advice is like it gets hard for sure. And like it's not going to be easy at all times. There's always like some sort of hiccup in the road. There's things that like get in your way, but instead of viewing them as like life like challenges, they're more like obstacles that you push through and like are just like minor pebbles in your path, because like looking at the big picture, it won't matter as much as we think. Like sometimes maybe it seems super big and sometimes it is big, but there's nothing like we can't like necessarily get through. So I always think about that. I worked in my dad's office for some time, and so like hearing all these things, like these are things that kind of I pass down, and he always says like make sure you keep like a balance. So like being with our community is definitely that balance, and not forgetting that like no matter like what kind of challenges we face with like work and school, whatever it may be, it's important that we like make sure we keep our faith, keep our community close, and really emphasize that.
You know, I liked something that you just said right now, because I think Chaldeans can also be very hard on themselves and maybe on each other. Sometimes I think these are, one time I read something, or I don't know if I read it or if I wrote it, but it says where that some stereotypes are correct. Actually, I did, yeah. Some stereotypes come from something, right? So I think that one of the things that we tend to have is being hard on ourselves and hard on each other. And I like what you just said, that if something comes up, it's like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We don't have to have this perfect, at this and this. Creating a balance is for your own health and well-being, and it's a healthy thing to do. But doesn't mean that you can succeed at that easily. It's not an easy thing to do. And that it's okay that if we mess up or change routes or do whatever comes in our path, that's okay too. So we don't have to feel like we're so hard on ourselves if we don't continue with a certain path, or we have to veer away from something. Like that's okay, not to judge ourselves so hardly, or others about it. Kayla?
Yeah, so I think that my biggest piece of advice is kind of to follow your path and like to do what you want to do, and it's okay if it's not like the norm or what everybody else is doing, like with choosing your major. Like as long as it's what you want to do and you're inspired by it and you love to learn about it, like you'll be all right. You'll get a good job, I promise. But and then just like staying with our community, because our community is where like we feel welcome. Like I can go join any club on campus, but like as soon as you see like a Chaldean person, like you immediately like feel a connection and you're like at home. So just stick with what you want to do, and then like stick with the community as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because it's the some of the concepts that we have about things, whether it's people or even careers, it's not true. You don't have to be a starving artist. That's just, there's so many myths out there. It's really about you working on yourself, working on your work, and having the mentality that that's not really the case. There's successes wherever you go. So I give you so much credit, Kayla, for stepping outside of the norm, really, and following your path, and then also finding a successful and practical way to handle it. I think it takes a lot of maneuver to do that, and a lot of people sometimes end up being a lot older before they discover that.
Yeah, thank you.
Ladies, you guys are so inspiring. It's very inspiring to see women such as yourselves, leading the way, because I think that older generations, whether right now we're having a founders gala in October, and we're honoring the founders who started the Chaldean Cultural Center and built the museum. And I always give such gratitude, because I feel like my job where I'm at is because of them. And then you, as the younger generation, it makes us feel like our work, like moving forward, I know, somebody is going to be replacing us, and it just makes our work also more worthy, it feels like, and worthwhile. So thank you so much. Really, really great examples of our community. We really appreciate you and your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having
And
us.
I'll be attending something one of these days, maybe a barbecue or something. I'll see how
Yes.
I'm in town. I'll be attending something, especially if it has like the food or anything. In it. Okay.
You're always welcome.
Always.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.